Vampires versus the Bronx. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. Vampires in the Bronx. It's kind of like that thought that you had when you heard the term vampires in Brooklyn. It sounds kind of corny and cheesy, and it kind of was, but it also kind of wasn't. And it could be because this movie played to a bunch of my biases. You know, being Dominican myself, being from New York. I'm not from the Bronx, I'm from Queens, but still New York, home team. It was very Dominican, which I appreciate. And not Dominican like Jeffrey Wright playing Peoples Hernandez in Shaft. Even though I thought he did a good job. And again, that was probably just because it played towards my bias of being something really Dominican. But yeah, it was really Dominican. My guy Mero from Jesus and Mero was one of the main characters in it. He played a bodeguero named Tony. There was another bias for you right there. I mean, come on. You have a Dominican guy named Tony in your movie. I'm going to sing you praises forever. It was written and directed by Osmani Rodriguez. There's one more writing credit on the movie as well. And that's to, I hope I'm pronouncing his first name right, Blaise Hemingway. And the movie came out around, it's available on Netflix. I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but it came out around Halloween. And the premise is that there is this real estate company moving into the Bronx and gentrifying it. You know, and it definitely has like a double meaning of just gentrification in general, of how, you know, folks move into certain quote unquote bad areas and start fixing it up. And then when property values go up, the people that were originally from that neighborhood can no longer afford it and they have to move out and move on. And this happens over and over again, right? It's like turnover of communities, or turnover at a community level, rather, which is not cool, right? But what the funny spin and where like the vampires come in this is that, you know, it's this real estate company that's moving in. It's buying up a lot of buildings in this neighborhood in the Bronx, and the buildings are getting like boarded up, and, you know, people are leaving the neighborhood. And these three kids, kind of like young teenage kids, one of them winds up witnessing this like group of drug dealers that go to or are gonna attempt to like rob this like gothic looking guy, and that guy winds up being a vampire, winds up killing the drug dealer guy, and then this kid witnesses that, and he's trying to tell people that there's vampires in the neighborhood. You know, nobody believes him. Then he goes snooping around, and then him and his friends find out that the folks that own the real estate company, that's just a front, that they really are vampires. And, you know, they just go neighborhood to neighborhood and literally and figuratively suck the lifeblood out of the neighborhood. And they take it upon themselves to try to save the neighborhood and kill these vampires. So it's a cool kind of homage to, I don't know if you guys remember a movie that I used to really like growing up called The Lost Boys from back in the day, from 1987. With Corey Feldman and I believe Corey Haim as well, that seemed to have been in like all the fucking 80s movies back then. It's just kind of like a cool homage to that. And then again, I just fucking love the Dominican-ness of it. And they didn't like play any of it down. They didn't like water it down. It was like very unapologetically Dominican, which I really appreciated like crazy. And like they had a couple things. They had the bodega, like I mentioned, the bodeguero named Tony, that's always giving people shit on credit, like store credit. If you grew up like near bodegas growing up, I remember as a kid going to the bodega with my cousin that lived in Brooklyn and East New York, and we used to go and like she didn't have to pay right away. Like the bodega like knew her, and he would go and my mom said to, you know, send her a pack of cigarettes and give me a bag of chips and she'll come pay you later or whatever, you know, like stuff like that. And I had a similar type of deal actually in Queens, in Jamaica, Queens, on Suffin. I used to work there, and around the corner there was a bodega. We had that type of relationship as well. So they had like that. They had the cliche bodega cat, just like chilling, lying around. All bodegueros have a cat to like help kill like rodents and shit like that in the store. You had the neon sign from the bodegas that like Mero definitely references all the time on Jesus and Mero, and they, as an homage to that, they on that show, Jesus and Mero, each of their illustrious guests get a neon sign at the end of every episode where they can like say like a phrase or whatever they want to say, and that's like their neon sign to get like plastered above them before they like leave the episode. So that was a cool part of the movie. Peralta clothing, which I bought a few pieces from, which my brother put me on to. I've gotten my kids a couple shirts from there. It's like a Dominican designer. I'll link to their website in the episode notes if anybody wants to check them out. But I saw a couple of like Nueva York tees from Peralta clothing, which was cool to see. You know, guys on the corner playing dominoes. It was like, a really funny scene that my wife and I were like cracking up at were like when the kid, he's like running around, he's trying to tell like people in the neighborhood about the vampires and stuff like that. And he passes by these two guys that are like playing dominoes or whatever. Or I think at that point, they had been playing dominoes, but they were just like chilling or whatever on the block. And he like tells them, you know, like the music stops, and he tells the kid tells these guys, you know, don't stay out after dark because something is going to happen or whatever, blah, 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 after 9 o'clock. And, you know, go home and this and that and the other. And he like says something to them, like to that effect. I'm like butchering it a bit. And then he leaves, and then the kid leaves on his bike. Then it pans back to the two guys, and they're like, yo, that was mad vague. Like, I don't know, the way they shot that scene and the way he said what you didn't expect him to say, but it was kind of like spoofing that cliche moment in movies where, you know, the protagonist is trying to tell everybody about what's going on. It was fucking hilarious. I like that there was this girl that throughout the whole movie, she was just like doing IG posts. Like she had her, not a YouTube channel, but like a IG, like a live channel, I guess, or something like that. And it was called the Glow Updates. And like she was through that, like narrating everything that was going on in the neighborhood, and like knew everybody's tea and shit. I thought that was a pretty cool touch. And at the end, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it yet, it was really funny to see the like neighborhood come together, and there's like this fight scene between the neighborhood and the vampires. And the bodeguero, Tony, spoiler alert, Mero dies because one of the vampires gets them. And he actually had hanging up like as a shrine a bat of Sammy Sosa's from when he was in that home run race, title race with Mark McGuire. He had like one of those bats like as a shrine or whatever, and he was like trying to use that to like kill the vampire, and that winds up being like a piece of that winds up being what kills like the head vampire at the end. So that was cool. But it was, they did like a funny montage of like the neighborhood like coming together to fight the vampires, and it was like a mother with curlers in her hair, and like the two guys playing dominoes came and like broke a domino table on top of one of the vampires and said Capicua. And it was just like cheesy, funny, corny fun. And I definitely recommend it. You guys should check it out. It's called, again, Vampires in Brooklyn, and is available on Netflix.